All right. So thanks so much, everyone, for being here. We're really happy to have you. My name is David Chernak. I'm from Empire Clean Cities, a 501(c)(3) nonprofit committed to decarbonizing and reducing our dependence on petroleum in transportation uses on the road here in New York City and the Hudson Valley. We're a part of the Bronx is Breathing project, a project led by Volvo Trucks North America with participation from lots of different great organizations, some of which you'll hear from today. And this project is focused on bringing electric trucks to Hunts Point Peninsula, where there is a overburdened community who has been on the receiving end of transportation emissions, largely from diesel trucks and the transportation that makes that neighborhood's businesses run, but also contributes to very poor air quality. So this group, Bronx is Breathing, is committed to bringing a electric trucking hub, electric trucks, and workforce development to the Hunts Point area. And this webinar is part of the latter point. We're going to be talking about pursuing your commercial driver's license or CDL, the different types of CDLs, and the ways where you can get scholarships and funding on your way to getting your CDL in New York City and getting into a truck and driving in a more high-paying career. So just a little bit of an agenda for us. I've already started our introductions a little bit. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. And then we'll get into the state of the trucking industry. We'll hear from Zach from the Trucking Association of New York, or TANI. Then we'll hear from Workforce One Industrial and Transportation about pursuing your CDL, scholarships that are available for CDL training in New York City. We'll hear a little bit about freight electrification as a service and electric trucking and the state of the industry and how it's developing. And then we'll get into a Q&A. I anticipate our presentation will take about 30 to 35 minutes, leaving us with about 20 minutes for question and answer. I know you guys will have a lot of questions about what's available. We want to make sure to get to. So who we are. Bronx is Breathing is a community-focused project funded by NYSERDA and the U.S. Department of Energy, which aims to reduce air pollution, advance freight electrification. Sorry, I'm just gonna mute some folks. My apologies. Anyway, the Bronx is Breathing is a community-focused project funded by NYSERDA, funded by the U.S. DOE. It's committed to reducing air pollution and advancing freight electrification and supporting an overall clean mobility picture in Hunts Point when it comes to transportation electrification. This project will address both public health challenges in Hunts Point and longstanding economic development imperatives by conducting workforce development work, as we're doing today, deploying Hunts Point's first electric truck-focused charging hub right there in Hunts Point, and deploying electric trucks with Hunts Point-based fleets around the neighborhood, which we're very excited about. Folks who are from the Bronx is Breathing project on the call today include myself from Empire Clean Cities, Paul Lipson from Barretto Bay Strategies, and Don Eversley is here from Greater Hunts Point Economic Development Corporation. And Don, if you'd like to say a few words, the floor is yours.
Sure. Just want to quickly welcome everybody. As we thought about the future of the trucking industry and this exciting technology of electric vehicles that is starting to populate that industry sector, the future for the drivers looks bright. The new technologies has a lot of benefits both for the community, for trucking companies, and for the drivers in terms of no fumes and much less vibration. It's a better driver experience, as I'm led to understand. And from a Hunts Point perspective, we're a neighborhood that's packed with jobs, and many of those jobs revolve around moving goods. And there's always a demand, and we want to do what we can to match that demand with motivated people who are looking for a career change. So welcome. And we hope some of you are interested to pursue this further. Thank you for joining.
Great. Thank you, Don. And along with our Bronx is Breathing partners, we've brought in some really wonderful folks from Bronx Workforce One and TANI, the Trucking Association of New York, who are going to give us some additional background on the state of the trucking industry and CDL. So I'll pass it over to Zach to talk a little bit about where the industry is at and the job market currently for trucking in our area. Take it away, Zach.
Thanks so much, and thanks everyone for joining us today. A really crucial discussion. Next slide, please. So I'm Zach Miller. I'm the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Trucking Association of New York. So who is the Trucking Association of New York? Well, we are the voice of trucking in the state, creating jobs, supporting the economy, driving safety, and delivering sustainable future for our members. We advocate on behalf of the industry throughout New York State, New York City, Washington, D.C., promote safety, offer training and educational programs, and we do a lot of work to inform the general public about what this industry is and the skills it takes to become a driver. We like to say the safe and efficient movement of freight is our priority. We are over 550 members strong, divided into 5 regions: Metro, Eastern, Central, Genesee, and Western. For the purposes of this conversation, we'll focus on Metro. 70% of our members are what we consider to be fleets, and 30% are what we consider to be industry service providers. And of those fleets, it is a full range. We have everything from a single unit owner operator all the way up to national and multinational fleets. But the bulk of our membership are what we consider to be small to mid-sized fleets. Next slide, please. So some really interesting fast facts about the industry in the state of New York. Trucking accounts for about 328,000 jobs in the state, or 1 in every 24 jobs is in trucking. There are around 113,000 trucking companies in the state, and those are primarily small and mid-sized, locally owned businesses. For salary, the average over-the-road truck driver in the state makes a little over $62,000 a year. New York is on the higher end of the pay scale, as is New Jersey. So, this region does tend to pay higher, than the national average, which is really great. And I do want to say that just talking to our members, really coming out of COVID, the pay has gone even higher than that. A driver with some experience and a clean driving record, you're starting to look at the 6-figure range for driving a truck in this region, which is fantastic. And it matters. 90% of communities in the state exclusively rely on trucks to move their goods. That does include New York City. Next slide, please. And it all comes down to growth and demand. Pre-COVID, 60% of deliveries were made to commercial customers and about 40% to residential customers. That has really flipped coming out of the pandemic. About 80% of deliveries are going to residential customers. 45% of New Yorkers receive a delivery at their home at least once a week. I will admit, in my household, that number is much higher than that. And e-commerce growth, accelerated by COVID-19, has increased both the number and the type of freight deliveries in New York City, particularly in residential neighborhoods. And we're seeing that translate in employment. Freight transportation employment in New York City has grown almost 30%, and warehousing and storage, I promise this is not a typo, has grown 382% since the pandemic. 129,000 jobs are in transportation and logistics, and 123,000 jobs are in warehousing. This is a major part of New York's industrial sector. Next slide, please. And so, before I wrap, I do want to add a little about electrification and electric vehicles. As I mentioned, so much growth has been driven by e-commerce, by last mile. That is where we're seeing the best application for electric vehicles currently. We have members at the Trucking Association that tell us that their, last mile routes in New York City are profitable using electric vehicles. So the segment that's growing the fastest is also the one that has the greatest EV capabilities. In addition to that, what's also really good, I know there are some people that are interested in becoming a truck driver, but are a little concerned about, being away from home, being over the road. 6, 7 days a week. This is local. For the foreseeable future, companies utilizing electric vehicles, it's going to be localized driving. You're going to be home at night. You'll be able to set your hours at a more reasonable rate. A lot of really, really good applications, for EV in last mile urban freight New York City. And this is my information. As I said, Zach Miller, VP of Government Affairs for Tanny. My email, that is my cell. Feel free to text me. Happy to answer any questions as we move through this presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Zach, for all of that background. I think it's really important to orient ourselves and know that this is an industry that is growing and is receptive and really needs folks who are going to, usher the new commerce wave that we're seeing forward and continue to draw in new employees and folks who want to join this industry. So really appreciate that so much. Um, and when it comes to getting certified and learning how to achieve what you need to get behind the wheel of a truck or bus or any other medium or heavy duty vehicle, there's a lot to know. It can seem a little bit daunting. I know when I was doing my research for this, it seemed a little bit daunting. But we're going to hear from Workforce One Industrial and Transportation about what they can offer and a little bit more of the background on the different types of CDLs, different commercial driver's license levels and endorsements, and all of that stuff that you guys came here to hear. So I will pass it over to Alexa.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Eismer. I am the intake specialist at Bronx Workforce One, the industrial and transportation sector. And then I'll just be guiding you guys through the process today. Next slide. So first off, we are Workforce One. Our system is part of the NYC Department of Small Business Services. We help our candidates. So we do job placements, we do trainings, we do help with resumes, interview, things like that. So we have 18 workforce centers in our 5 boroughs, and we help more than 100,000 job seekers every year. Next slide, please. Okay, so in order for you to receive a voucher, you have to be a part of our Workforce One program. So the first thing is to get registered. So, you can find us through job boards, community partners, social media, and then you come into our office, you get screened, we review your resumes, and then confirm your credentials. If you're ready for job placement, then we help you find jobs with an employer. And then if you need any more services, like if you need training or anything, then we refer you to services. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our ITG training or individualized training grant. Next slide. All right, so for starters, our eligibility, we have wheel requirements. So you must be 18 years of age or older. You must be a resident of the 5 boroughs. If you have public assistance, then we would need to verify your status. If you are a male, 26 or under, then we would also, over, we would have to verify your selective service. And if you are employed, it is okay. You would just have to make $91,000 or less, and we prove that through a pay stub. Next slide, please. Okay. So our qualifications for the CDL, you go through a training program. So we give you a voucher. It's $3,250. For the Class A, you have to be 21 years of age. And for the Class B, you have to be a minimum of 18 years of age. You have to have a clean abstract, which you get from the motor vehicle department. You bring it to us, and then we let you know if you qualify. After that, you have to get your permit and then get your endorsements as well. Next slide. Okay, so this is where we get into the nitty-gritty. So for the CDLA, you need to have your Class B license for a minimum of 2 years. But if you just have your regular driver's license for a minimum of 3, then we can offer you the CDLB training, which is for the small trucks. We'll talk about with the different kinds of trucks as we move forward, but all candidates must have the unrestricted driver's license for at least 3 years. And you need to have your permit, but you don't have to have your permit when you come into the office. We have you do the permit test after you give us your abstract, and if we know that you qualify. You can have no suspensions of any type within the past 3 years. That's including any scoff law or non-driving related infractions. no accidents, no AFL accidents within the last 5 years, and no more than 4 points on your abstract. Next question. Next slide, please. So the process is you would come in with your standard driving abstract, which I said you would get from either the DMV in person, or if you have a online DMV account, you can also just purchase your abstract through there, download it, you come into our office, we look at it, and then we let you know if your abstract passes the requirements. If it does, then we register you for Workforce One if you're not, and then we check for your WIOA eligibilities. After that, you get your permit, and then you get the endorsements that you asked for. Our most common endorsements are the passenger endorsement, the school bus endorsement, and the air brakes. So you would get those at the DMV. After you get your permit with your endorsements, then you come into my office. You take our CDL assessment. It's basically 20 to 25 questions. You need a passing score of 75, and we give you 3 chances to take it. If you fail, then you would just have to wait a week in between of each test. After that, we give you a list of the schools so that you can do your research and see what schools match your schedule, the road test, the costs, and things like that. After you pick your school, you go get a training letter. After you get a training letter, you come back into my office and you fill out the online application on our Workforce One profile. And then we look at your documents. So if you're employed, we need a pay stub. If you are 26 or over, then we have to verify that you're registered for selective service, things like that. And then you would do a acing the interview workshop, and then we schedule you for the final interview with our training department. Okay, so now we're going to talk about career exploration. So here are the different kinds of trucks that you can drive with the CDLs. So with the CDL A, you can see that those are the big freight trucks. And then for the CDL B, they're semi-big, but you can do box trucks as well. And then for the CDL C are the really small accessorized trucks. So for the license types, so for the CDL, it's the heavy truck driver. It's a combination of vehicles with the weight of 26,000 pounds or more. The CDLB, which is the light truck or the bus driver, it's a single vehicle that is 26,000 pounds or more. And then the CDLC, which we don't offer as a grant, as a training grant, but if you are interested in getting your CDLC, you can always just let me know, and then we'll connect you to our account manager, who's also on, Earl Lewis, and we have a couple of work positions that do train you for that. So then we have the CDLC, which is a single vehicle or a combination of vehicles that are not like the A and the B. They're just used to transport 16 or more passengers, and they're just really small. They're like the accessorides and like the small school buses. Okay, so now for the driver training, you need to have a general knowledge test. You need to take a general knowledge test and be passed with a score of 80%. And then these are the sections that you need to pass. But this is what you learn when you go to the training school. They teach you about all of the general knowledge that you need. So when you take the test at the driving test, your CDL. So for the CDLC, it only allows you to operate a single vehicle with the weight of 16,000 to 26,000 pounds, designed just to transport passengers. So like I said before, it's just 15 or more, but you do need the passenger endorsement, which you can get at the DMV. And then paratransit drivers work for transportation companies that provide service to people with medical mobility issues, like the accessoride. For the CDLB, if you have a passenger endorsement or a school bus, then you, as well as the air brakes, sorry, you qualify to drive a motor coach bus. And those are usually like the ones for charter trips, tours, and may last up to several days and require some flexibility in your schedule for jobs. So you must have like open availability. And then finally, for the CDLA drivers, which is the big trucks, after 2 years with the CDLA license, you can go over the road, which means those are like the state-to-state driving opportunities. So regional drivers may work over several states near their homes. They're usually away from a short period short periods of time. So if you are interested in doing over the roads, then you can do it after 2 years. Or if you just want to do like, if you just want to stay home, then that's also okay. You can still get your CDLA. Interstate drivers are known as over the road or long haul drivers and often cover distances of thousands of miles and are away from home for a week or more. Okay. So now these are the endorsements. So our most commonly used endorsements, like I said, are the school bus, the passenger, and the tow trucks. So those are usually used for the CDLBs. But if you're looking for the CDLA, then you would do, if you want to do like hazardous materials and stuff, then you would do either the tanker, the hazardous materials, the tank and hazmat, double triples, and the metal coil. All of these are offered at the DMV. So you would have to study for the test using the DMV handbook, and then you can take the test at the DMV office. Okay, so now we're just going to go into some of the job opportunities if you do get your CDL. So we have the owner/operator versus the company driver. So company drivers are employees of a particular trucking company and drive trucks provided by their employer. So basically, you have to work for the company and then they give you the truck. Owner operators are individuals who own the trucks they drive and can either lease their trucks by contract with the trucking company to haul freight for that company using their own trucks, or they haul loads for a number of companies and are self-employed independent contractors. And then we have the independent owner operators that are those who own their own authority to haul goods and often drive their own trucks, possibly owning a small fleet anywhere from 1 to 10, maybe as few as 2 or 3 trucks. And then we also have people who are interested in the CDL, but then, once they start, they want to move up in the company. So we have the manager and then supervisor positions. So those who grow within a trucking company may take on more managerial or supervisory roles. And then some of those roles include dispatching, routing, tracking transportation, directing investigations to verify and resolve customer or shipper complaints, or serve as contact persons for all workers assigned territories, implementing schedule and policy changes. So if you guys are interested and want to join, these are the 2 QR codes. So we offer in-person and virtual events weekly. If you do want to join, then you would just scan one of the QR codes and then you can join us for an info session. I can talk a little bit deeper, or if I went too fast, I can also go back. So yeah, I look forward to seeing everybody. Oh, I also forgot to mention, you would also need to bring your abstract to the info session just so that we can get started on the process. It may sound like a lot, but it's really not. You would only have to come to my office maybe like 2 or 3 times. And the whole process, it may seem like you can get lost, but we walk you through everything as well. And we not hold your hand, but we help you through it. Okay, so this is our website, the phone number, and then our hours of operation. So someone can define. Okay, so the abstract is your driving record. It would have all of the information that you need ever since you had your license. It would have your points if you ever got into a car accident or if you ever had any kind of accident, that would be in your abstract. If you had any suspensions of any type, all of that would be in your abstract. So your abstract is your driving record.
Hey, you, Danny.
Thank you. Yeah, muted myself there. Thanks so much. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate all this information. It is a lot. But we'll be sending out a list of all of these links and all these resources to folks tomorrow. That'll have everything you need to know to get in touch with Workforce One, and continue that process. Just a couple quick more slides before we get into the Q&A section. We are Empire Clean Cities is a part of another program that's actually funded by the same revenue or by the same pot of funding that funds the Bronx's Breathing Project called Feast, which is freight electrification as a service for transformation. And they are offering an upcoming training about electric vehicles and electric vehicle maintenance. And this course will introduce students to info, career choices, and skills along the lines of diesel and electric vehicles, and topics in the Automotive Service and Excellence in Education Foundation, which has a lot to do with the sort of different standards that you can reach in maintenance. Exact dates are TBD, but those will be coming up in March of 2025 at Bronx Community College. Similar minimum requirements, 18 years of age and, high school diploma or equivalency. So if you're interested in more of the maintenance side of trucking and getting under the hood instead of getting behind the wheel, make sure you contact TDEAHN at cwe.org. Yeah, and you can learn more about that upcoming info session. That'll also be on our calendar at empirecleancities.org once it gets scheduled. And just a couple more notes about the Bronx's breathing. We're always having workforce and community engagement opportunities coming up, including community listening sessions, which happen right in Hunts Point on Garrison Avenue. You can join our community-focused listening sessions that will inform the Hunts Point Roadmap or Electrification Roadmap, which is a document that will guide the next decade of transportation electrification and sustainability in this neighborhood in the South Bronx. We'll also have more lunch and learns coming up, which are events we'll discuss more workforce development, all things electric trucking, with fleets and professionals who are doing this work already in the South Bronx and beyond. So thank you so much for attending. We're wrapping up right at the half hour here with our presentation, which gives us plenty of time for Q&A. I'm gonna crack open the chat and see if we've got anything yet. But if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions for our presenters.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Bruce.
Okay, one of my questions is for the electric trucks. How many stations are there around the country where they can actually charge up? Because I know that's a particular issue with electric vehicles throughout the country
Yeah, that's a huge
and the cost that's associated with it.
Yeah, thanks for asking because that is such a huge issue. Right now in New York, there are not publicly available charging for medium and heavy duty vehicles. Um, it is, really the challenge. I think for a while there was a conversation about the chicken or the egg, what needs to be done first. And as we've gotten to the point where we are today, where there is a decent amount of equipment available for purchase, the challenge is that charging component. We're very frustrated about it. I can tell you, we've had countless conversations with state and city agencies and legislators about getting more and more, public charging built up. It is complicated. There's questions about, what the utilities can do and when. I will say specifically for the purposes of the Bronx in New York City, development is getting a little closer. So I know that part of the Hunts Point redesign is going to have medium and heavy duty charging. I know that EDC has a couple of smaller locations in industrial zones that they're going to be installing charging at. And so I think once more of that becomes online, exactly to your point, we will be able to see more electric vehicles on the road.
Yeah, and for me, it's a particular issue because if you're talking about commercial driving, you're talking about traveling all points of the country, and if we engage in clean energy and electric vehicles, we need to be able to charge our trucks in order to move durable goods and services throughout the country.
Oh my gosh, 100%, 100%. It's also interesting because I know the other careers in trucking that were mentioned, one of them was dispatch. The role of the dispatcher is not an easy role today, But it's going to be even more challenging with electric vehicles trying to route these trucks on a course where they know there's going to be charging, from terminal to on the road to terminal again. In some ways, it is very much like a new industry that's popping up, but under the umbrella of the current trucking industry, which is, adds another layer of challenge to this as we sort of figure this out moving forward.
Okay, and I have just one more question. I don't mean to hog the stage or anything, but with the electric vehicles and stuff like that, the operations of the vehicles, are they going to create different standards? Because when you're talking about diesel fuel trucks, there's different different standards for how you operate it. When you have to stop, check the truck and so on and so forth, is that going to change based on the model of the truck and how
So
it's operated?
Yeah, so another really great question here. I think, one thing is the weight. The batteries are very heavy. It affects payload. That's something that the drivers need to consider as they're driving. They need to be able to consider that extra weight. I know that for companies that have started incorporating electric vehicles, to set up their charging internally, there's a lot of wiring, there's a lot of safety training that the whole company has to go through as they account for that. I have not yet heard how an electric vehicle affects a pre-trip inspection, but it's a great point, and I'd imagine that there are certain things that a driver has to look out for if it's an electric vehicle before they get in that cab.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
David,
Donna,
I have my hand up.
yeah, I was just about to cue you in. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, just to the gentleman that talked, don't forget you're asking about over the road, which is only one type of trucking that we're recruiting for. So there's a tremendous amount of commercial electric vehicles in the city in use already, and typically those charge at the parking lot or at the depot. So New York City has electric trucks that charge overnight at the city facility. Manhattan Beer, which is right here in Hunts Point, has electric beverage trucks that are out on the street every day that charge at their facilities. Amazon's vans charge at their facilities. So it's a good point for over the road, but there are a tremendous amount of jobs that all involve local driving where you're starting and you're ending right here in New York City.
Excellent. Um, so Alexa, can you provide a little bit more clarity about the CDL voucher program? I've seen a couple of questions about that. So if someone qualifies for the voucher, do they just take it to their driving school of choice to pay them to defray the cost? And compared to the total cost of a CDL training at one of those schools, what percentage of the cost would you anticipate that usually covers?
So in speaking about the CDLA, it would just depend on how much the school charges. I believe we have a couple that charge around 4,000. So since the voucher only covers 3,250, then the candidate would have to pay the rest out of pocket.
Gotcha.
And also just to clarify, I saw a question here about the CDLB upgrade. So just to clarify, yes, if you have your CDLB permit license, then you do qualify. All you need is 2 years of experience with your Class B. So if you have a Class B driver's license and it's clean, then you do qualify for the Class A, and we can give you a voucher for that.
Great. And Rashawn is asking in the chat, just to clarify, what program is it that is needed to have a clean driving record with no at-fault accidents in the last 3 or 5 years to participate in? Was that just regarding Workforce One's program, or was that getting a CDL in general from DMV?
So this is our qualifications for the Workforce One CDL training grant. If
Perfect.
you want to do it out, like if you want to pay for everything out of pocket by yourself, there are no barriers. This is just us because we're funded.
Great. Anyone else? I think those that pretty much covers the questions in the chat.
Yeah,
If
David, I had asked if either if Alex or Earl could just spend a little bit more time because I know it's second nature to them, but it's not for many people. The A, the B, the C, what does that mean in terms of vehicles that I see on the road? Which ones are which? Because it's not when you say medium and heavy duty, it's not always clear.
Okay. So for CDLA, it would be the very big trucks, the ones that haul from state to state. They're about like they have a lot of wheels. So you can attach other attachments to the car that will make them like the really long ones, the really heavy duty ones. Those you can drive with the CDLA. Now, for the CDLB, you can do motor coach buses, you can do school buses, like not the small school buses, just the like the long school buses. So you can do those. And then for the C, it's really just the small box trucks and the accessoride ones.
Well,
So,
also there's the
okay, but
gross
what,
weight
but
vehicle
box.
that comes into play as well as air brakes certification as well.
I'm
Oh,
sorry, you were like cut off. I couldn't hear the first part.
I said there's a gross weight that attaches to each CDL that allows you to drive a certain class of weight for each vehicle as well as air brake training and
Yes,
certification.
yes.
so I think so maybe the picture is a little bit confusing because it looks like B means over the road buses, but I'm assuming that the kinds of conventional box trucks that seem to proliferate in Port Morris and Hunts Point, going from the produce market out to restaurants and stores. Which class are those?
So those are B classes.
Okay.
Like the for the C, you can do the small vans, like the Amazon vans that people drive. You can drive those with a C. With a B, you would be able to do like the trucks that do transport, like the ones that go out of Hunts Point. Yes.
Okay, great.
great.
Also, I'm sorry, excuse me. This is Earl. Good evening, everyone. So one of the things also to remember that the axles would play a part. So you have a three axle, two axle, four axle. Then there's a weight restriction, as the gentleman just said. I believe Bruce talked about anything over 2,600 pounds is going to escalate up beyond a B into A category. Then there's a single. So you have below 2,600. So we're looking at the C, which is generally a passenger vehicle, which is accessoride or an ambulette type vehicle, which would probably in the C area. There's a Sprinter 2 that can carry passengers, which is lower than the 15 passengers, which could be considered a non-CDL driving vehicle. But with this one, the coach and the doors, usually a lift gate is attached with this C, so that would put it into the realm of a CDLC. And then we have the B. So they have a bus here, but we have a box truck. Also, as you said, Don, there's a box truck that's in play. But the weight is really the issue. You cannot carry a certain amount of weight in the B category or exceed it. And sometimes it even comes into play with refrigeration. So there's a various factors that go into play. And then, of course, the straight truck, the 18-wheelers or longer. And then, as Alex Miser said, the tail and how it axles into the front cabin. The front cabin independent, but it can carry certain amount of luggage in the back, which is the freight and the box truck, actually. So the
So from a job standpoint,
yes.
because you guys see listings for truck drivers come into your office every week, and then I know because then you email to me. So strictly from a job standpoint, for someone that doesn't want to drive to Arkansas overnight, but wants to make a living driving out of the Bronx, out of Port Morris, Zarega Avenue, Hunts Point, and what have you, Sunset Park, Brooklyn. What is the class that gives you the most bang for the buck in terms of doing local deliveries here in the city?
Probably you're looking at the B is probably the medium point.
Yeah, it's B.
Probably the
Yeah.
B. However, um, what's happening, and I'm using this as an example, I've seen that the CDL C's companies have aggressively started to look at how to incentivize potential candidates. So I'm a CDL BPS, a passenger student driver with a B endorsement, and I go into a C opportunity and they say, well, hey, we'll give you $26 an hour or $27 an hour. And after 90 days, we'll incentivize you by $5,000. Some say after a year, we'll give you $7,500 and pay it out 6 months, 6 months. So depending on the person, and to your point, Don, if I'm coming off the road, I don't want anything to do with the road. I've been on the road for a year or two, and I have a family, and I just want to be home. So that's the point of difference that the education comes in. Well, we have A, which is, are you okay talking to passengers and helping passengers? So passengers are different than boxes and freight. Passengers talk back, and passengers sometimes don't cooperate. And, there's a whole bunch of factors. Why are you late? I'm supposed to be. So there's some things that, drivers might have the tolerance for, and they need to know that. And we really educate them. Hey, if you don't want to deal with passengers, this is probably not a good look for you. And so we tell them about the box truck. However, the box trucks constitute a touch. You must touch freight. You must load freight. You're bending. So if I've been a bus driver for 5 or 10 years, sit in a sedentary position, driving all day long, opening the door, say on and off, and I've got a monitor that's monitoring the passengers, I'm not going to be excited about getting out of that position, going into a box truck where I'm taking the hand truck, I'm loading things onto my truck, lifting it, going down the stairways, going in the city. So there's a lot of dynamics that has to be explained, and they're educated before, and they need to make an informed decision. So we sit and kind of give them the real. And here's the thing is that companies look for dependable, accountable, consistent drivers.
Mhm.
And that's what they need in the marketplace, because we have drivers that come in and they say, well, I don't want to do this. And okay, so to avoid that, the word retention is operative to all companies to have a great driving fleet. And candidates that can support that. So that's where the subtle difference comes in at the office. We have the face-to-face conversation, so to speak, with them before they go, just because they heard that the CDLB is paying more, the CDLC. Okay, so what's behind it? And they have to be really educated to that part of what you're committing to. And then the over the road, I have a company that says you're a CDLB driver, but hey, twice a month, we're sending you to DC, maybe to Maryland, maybe to Mass, maybe to Boston, and that's mandatory. So in your route guide, you're going out of town twice a month. Is it a return trip? Maybe. Generally it is, but sometimes it's an overnight. We'll pay you, but those are the things that we have to educate them about when they come in and to pursue the opportunity.
Great. Thanks, Earl.
Sure.
Seeing lots of great chats happening in the chat. Yeah, all details about the CDL voucher and everything, and restrictions and all this stuff. Yeah, I know we went through that on the quicker side, but we'll make sure to share all this information, and of course, it's all available on their website as well. Great. Any other questions? Anything to add, Don or Paul, or anything from our presenters?
Yeah, no, I just mistakenly applied to Alex and I meant to reply to Rashawn. No, Earl, you made a great point that um I hadn't considered being a amateur driver. I guess that's what you call the rest of us that just drive regular cars. Um, is that the bus driver um profession in which there is very good demand for now, particularly in the school bus field, and the truck driver field are very different because your payload in one is actual people with all their delights and issues versus, liquid bananas, boxes of stuff, whatever. And then you're not interacting with the passengers, but you are interacting with the merchant, with the hotel, with the store, with the warehouse, or whatever is at the other end. And so there is some lifestyle, there's some personalities that might flourish in one, but not flourish in the other. What I'll say though, having, truck drivers on both sides of my family, is that this is a profession that isn't going away anytime anytime soon. And it's the type of experience and qualification that you can take to any other state and find gainful employment. That's one of the great things about it.
But also with the Class A CDL, there's less barriers to employment for people with barriers to employment, such as returning citizens, people with disabilities, and so on and so forth as well.
Sir, the gentleman just spoke. Do you have a Class A yourself?
Yes, I do, with a tanker endorsement.
Great. Would you
Outstanding.
mind just telling folks like what your journey was, how you got into the industry, how you got trained, and what types of jobs you had? I think it'd be really helpful.
Well, backstory is I'm originally from the Bronx. I was born and raised. I wound up getting involved with the correction systems, and I spent 29 years incarcerated. And when I came home, I moved to North Carolina. Um, I had to bury my son, and I went through a program called Step Up Wilmington down in North Carolina, and they supported me in going through school to get my Class A CDL, and I drove for a road construction company for 3.5 years. But however, my passion is working with people with barriers to employment because that's my experience and stuff like that. And I wound up actually working for the program that I went through. And I worked for them for 6 years, providing job training and job placement support for people with barriers to employment. And it didn't matter whether you were incarcerated, whether you had um, emotional disabilities, or different barriers. We provided that support for everybody in the community, and I was able to continue that journey to develop a staffing division where we work with companies in the community that provided living wages for individuals so that they can actually meet their fiscal burden. And I staffed them, and they went on to have successful careers with these particular companies. I recently moved back to the Bronx because my mother is ailing, and I had some other personal issues. But the trucking industry, it was a great journey and a great experience. I learned how to do flatbedding, move heavy equipment, got my tanker endorsement, and work with um, water distribution so that we can pave and grade. And it was a great journey.
Wow.
Wow, Bruce.
Alex, Earl, if you ever need someone to talk to your students, there's one right there.
I'm available. Trust me.
That's
My
great, great story. We love to hear that. Because you're almost a living testimony of what can happen despite. So the justice involved, we work heavily with that population. Sometimes the companies, I don't know, companies sometimes they dole, which means they do a random drug test for their drivers, and if you come up positive, you will no longer be driving for that company, and they will issue you a direction you need to satisfy or go to a program for a specific amount of time to qualify and to be deemed eligible again to be put into play. And so we've also worked with candidates like that. And so sometimes those candidates might not initially come back to be drivers, but they possess the endorsements to be drivers. So they might come in as drivers helpers. they're clear that they know the route, they know what to do, they might assist the new drivers, and then eventually that turns into gainful employment that they're driving again. So this is good. I welcome the partnership where we can definitely provide help for those who are seeking opportunities, particularly our residents throughout New York City, specifically the Bronx too. So thank you, Don, and thank you, Bruce. If I have some information or get some information, we'll be in contact.
Yes, actually, I was gonna say Bruce already gave me his email through the
Oh,
chat. So
okay.
I have already sent him an email and I CC'd you with it as well. So
Great.
we're all in contact.
All right.
Wonderful. And just before we finish up, I'm just gonna put out a quick poll. We're just interested in how you heard about this info session. The poll should be up on the screen. So if you could just let us know how you heard, that'd be really helpful for us as we plan more workforce development events like this one. Um, and yeah, we're gonna send out all this information and more. Earl, Alexa, maybe we can get together and make sure that we've got all the stuff we need to send out to these folks to get informed and attend these info sessions. We'll send out the slides as well and the recording. And I just want to thank again our presenters and to all of the partners who came and supported us in this, and to you guys for coming to learn. Bruce, thank you so much for sharing your experience, and to everyone who shared their experiences in the chat as well. We're really happy to have you guys, and if you're interested more in learning about the Bronx's breathing, make sure to visit bronxisbreathing.org, and we look forward to hearing from you guys. Please
David,
feel
I just have a couple remarks if you have a sec.
yeah, absolutely, Don.
Yeah, thank you for all. This is the first one of these we've done, and it was a bit of an experiment. We plan to do a few more over the next year or two, and we'll do a little fine tuning based upon our experience here and what we think people need more information or more emphasis of. We've gotten a lot of great ideas from your questions and comments, and at Hunts Point Economic Development, I mean, we're really dedicated to connecting our local Bronx workers to the thousands of jobs that are here in the Bronx. And driving is one of them. And, take your information and your experiences and your input are going to be really helpful in crafting the message to those folks following behind people like our friend Bruce who are interested in it but don't know how to do it, don't know the possibilities, and don't know what to expect. So it's really helpful to have people like Alex, like Earl, and like Bruce that have done this professionally to help inspire the next generation of truckers. So thank you to all.
Great. Thanks so much, everybody. Feel free to email me or anyone at Workforce One with any questions, and we'll be in touch very, very soon with all this information. Thanks so much for coming. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay warm, and have a great weekend. Thank you all again.
Thank you.
And
Bye.
again,
Okay.
thank y'all for putting this on. I
Yes,
appreciate y'all.
absolutely.
You.
Thank you.